Hey, 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 it's Thursday night, folks. There is no news as of yet, but we are going to go through everything that we know at this point. This is Seth Kaiser. You can follow him here on Minnesota Chiefs fan .substack.com. I always do that wrong.
But it's all the same, really.
What are you going to do? You should also probably check him out on The Athletic as well as everywhere else that you can find him, like right here, where I like your taste in shirt. It's a nice color there, buddy.
Oh yeah, I was actually I wear I have like 10 t-shirts that I wear that are either this color or black because it's easier than working out. And I actually had on a black shirt and I was like, I don't know. And so just for you, dear watcher, which always makes you all sound creepy. Viewer is less creepy.
Yes.
Just for you, I threw on the deep maroon, I guess.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I just call it Boulevard Maroon. So cheers, everybody. But go over, sub to the Substack because you got to see what Seth is doing in his work to break things down for you. You can check out ours as well at NFL33.com. That's where I look at the league, the draft, how team building works, and really what the inside scoop is on organizations across the league that don't happen to live in Kansas City. So there is a lot to glean from there. See a lot of friendly faces in here. Our fearless moderator, Liz Morrow, is in the house. Hi, Liz. Thank you for doing what you do. And if you would, listen to her, because it always goes a lot better when you do. And if you would, please hit that thumbs up and put those question marks before. We will get to your questions later. If you're new to us, make sure you hit the like button right now so that you are going to give us a little support. And then hit the sub so you get more videos in return. Hit that bell as well so you get notified. There's only about 23% of people on this channel that actually have their notifications turned on. I just got new stats. So if you guys turn on the notifications for the channel and on your device, then you'll get those reminders when we do something. Because this is what we do, is go through our show, our thoughts, what Seth's been covering, and we have our discussion. Then we will get some of your questions later in the hour. But if you have a lot of questions, you want to come back on Monday night, same time at 6 Central, because that's when we just answer questions all night long. So hello to Liz. Hello, John. Tracy's in the house. Patrick's here. Daryl, Cole, a lot of the regulars. Nice to see you guys. I am stacking up your questions for later. But this show has to start. I think we both commented it to Mitch today. Mitch Schwartz hangs it up.
Yep. Officially.
It's been unofficial for a while. I've tried to tell folks that coming back from that kind of spinal surgery is difficult and that this was the most likely outcome in the end. But good for him for trying. Did it surprise you at all that Mitch was like, you know what? This is a good time for the season. I'm going to call it.
I think the only reason it took him this long is that I really think if he had his druthers, I think he really wanted to do one more year. Yeah. I think honestly, he's a sharp guy. I think he looked at the context of the team. You know, the only kind of unsettled, depending on what happens, position on the line is right tackle. I think he would know that if you threw him on this line as a whole, I think you've got a pretty easy argument for the best line in the league, maybe by a fairly substantial margin. Because when you really think about it, if and we'll just dream for a minute, okay? Because it's not going to happen. And we'll talk about Mitch Schwartz's career in a minute. But that's actually something I was thinking about this offseason as he seemed to be talking about getting healthier and that kind of stuff. I thought to myself, where would that offensive line rank all time if everyone played at the exact same level they played at last year, or maybe if the young guys developed even just a teeny amount? Because if that happened, you would have literally 2 all-pro caliber players, arguably 3, and 5 Pro Bowl caliber players on one line.
Sounds fun to me.
And that hardly ever happens. And before anyone asks, well, how would it stack up to the 03 line? It wouldn't. It's not fair. Will Shields, Mitch Schwartz is an awesome player, would be the best player on that line, but Will Shields is better than any player on this line.
Yeah.
So was Willie Rofe. And who, maybe Creed Humphrey goes on to make the All-Pro team like every single year, goes on to be an all-time great center. But that's what he'd have to do to stack up with when Brian Waters, a perennial Pro Bowl caliber player, is your third, is your third best lineman by a fairly sizable margin. And I think Brian Waters would tell you the same thing. Like if they were like, hey, how do you stack up to Rofe and Shields? He'd be like, nah, dude. Like, there's them, there's me.
I mean, honestly, it's an argument to have for Brian Waters and Casey Wigman, isn't it? I mean, Casey was
really good at that point. I think Waters was a little more 2 or 3 dimensional because Wigman was so undersized.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was like what, 285, give or take, maybe 290. He was a smaller center. But he was perfect for what Vermeil had him doing. It was awesome. He stayed busy. I mean, great line. And then when Tate, who was a solid right tackle that year, he's your 5th best player by a sizable margin. It doesn't stack up. It's not fair. I will stack that group up against any group in history because they're just that good. So anyway, I couldn't help but think about that, though, because in today's league for right now, I think you throw Mitch Schwartz in there. Even if he's 95 or 90% Mitch Schwartz, I think it's the best line in the league by a sizable margin. Yeah. We're not going to get that. It's a bummer, but it gives you time to wax eloquent about Mitch Schwartz. And so I was curious. I've talked for a little bit about my absurd hypothetical. Why don't you wax eloquent about Mitch Schwartz?
For me, he is the quintessential guy that overrides and he is my outlier. He's my number one outlier in any offensive lineman since I started covering the league. And Jason, thank you for that. We appreciate your vote of confidence. I'm going to attempt to live up to that here right now. And this is why. Everyone knows that I value athleticism above nearly anything but solid technique. Mitch is not a good athlete. Never was. About the only guy that's played with him or in his stead in recent memory that was actually a lesser athlete is Orlando Brown. So
and just to jump in, he is a little bit better athlete than Orlando Brown without being 350 and having 7-foot arms.
Right. Yeah. Different archetype of how he plays.
Yep.
But that's my favorite thing about Mitch Schwartz is he came in with a disadvantage in terms of Eric Fisher was a much better athlete. He had better footwork. He was quicker to actually rotate his hips when he had to. Mitch overcame all that with technique, instinct, and intellect. And that's the story of an offensive lineman. That's a guy that rose above where he began.
You're
and
right.
I think any conversation you have with him, whether you guys listen to the Athletic podcast with Robert Mays, or you see him somewhere else, or even when he's showing people how to cook, like that level of intellect and the ability to educate is something I'm sure we'll talk about later, but I see his future becoming that.
Yeah. Well, he's so smart. And that's one thing when people talk about Mitch Schwartz, he really is an outlier. He is not, you're not going to go find the next Mitch Schwartz because it's almost impossible. By the way, does everyone have tickets?
Let's see them. Right.
Let's be honest. That's what's known as, what's the term? Forced perspective. That's all that's going on here, folks. But I appreciate it. Hopefully Key's got like a really good shot as I leaned in and leaned out. But that's the miracle of the camera. Let's just not get my stomach out there too, because then that'll take over the whole screen. Anyway, sorry, the compliment distracted me. There just aren't players like him. And this is something we've actually talked about recently a little more, that one thing we underestimate as a talent, quote unquote, is not just understanding the game on paper, but being able to in real time process things quickly. Mm-hmm. And you can just call it reaction time if you want, but it's not just physical reaction time, it's mental reaction time too. And that's part of why I think some guys just know how to play football. We talked about this. Nick Bolton, from a physical perspective, I don't think had any right to be as good as he even was as a rookie. He looked as good as a rookie, maybe better than he did in college. That makes no sense. He looked at the same speed. That's so weird. The NFL is so much faster. But the ability to just process things that quickly. And Mitch Schwartz, I loved watching him and Von Miller go up against each other. Because Miller is unbelievable. I can say that now that he's no longer a Bronco. And I think, you could always appreciate how great he was.
Yeah, you got to respect game. Yeah.
And he in addition, like unlike Mitch Schwartz, Miller's also a very, 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 very physically talented guy. He had incredible bend, way more strength than people give him credit for. Great get off. I mean, he really is. He is about like you want to build a perfect, edge rusher type. He's almost the archetype. You get kind of close there. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Adam. Well, he's got great length too. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, watching those two go against each other is so cool because you get to see an example of what pass rush with a plan and pass protection with a plan looks like. Because you could see both of them, he'd start to reach out the arm for the long arm, and then he'd see Mitch coming down to swipe it down, and then he'd take it out and try to convert to a swim, and then he'd hitch his hips and get out, and they're just like reacting to each other. And in real time, it just looks like they're like, but it's just so cool when you slow it down and watch both of them. It's kind of like, it reminds me of, the Sherlock Holmes, the Robert Downey Jr. version.
Sure.
I don't know if you watched them. They're okay. I don't know. I mean, they're not bad. So one of the big things that they do is like when he gets into a fight, he sees it all in advance and he like goes through it in slow motion, what it's going to look like. That's what Mitch Schwartz playing football was like. You appreciate it so much more if you slow it down and watch because you see him processing what they're doing. It's so cool. He's such a great player. Really a one of one. Like no one, I don't think, has ever played the position at that high a level, being for a pro, that is, such an average to mediocre athlete.
Right.
And that's not a pot shot at him. He would probably agree. He wasn't a terrible athlete for the position, but he wasn't anything special.
Right.
And to play at that high level, that is more rare than an incredible physical specimen. Like, he's just such a great player. And also, my hot take, and maybe it's wrong, who knows what Mahomes might have done. I don't know if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl without Mitch Schwartz because he was the only guy. He dominated his matchups almost all day. The only one who gave him problems a few times was really lengthy guy, played inside and out. Starts with an A. Armstead. Yeah, I knew it wasn't Armstrong. Armstead gave him some problems on a couple steps because Armstead, that dude has 20-foot arms. Good player. I really like him a lot, actually. But, I mean, he dominated Dee Ford. Absolutely dominated him. And he also forced the Niners to say, we're putting Nick Bosa on this side. Right. And they didn't move him a ton regardless in previous weeks, but they did move him some. But they said, we're not wasting him on Mitch Schwartz.
Well, I'll go you one step further. I will say it's not a question mark. Without him, they don't win that game, period.
Right. Well, you can see the difference between almost everything falling apart up front and then everything falling apart the next year against the Bucs. And there was other stuff going on in that game too. We could talk about this, that, and everything. But really, with Schwartz dominating his matchup, it gave Mahomes a place to drift. Mm-hmm. It gave him a place to move. And it also lowered the percentages. We've talked about this with like complementary pass rush, that even when a guy's getting dominated, and Fish got dominated that game, that was tough. Nick Bosa is a terrible matchup for him because he wins with strength and technique. And and Bosa was unbelievable that game. Probably the best player on the field. He was just crazy good. But even when you're losing a lot, you're still only losing like 10 to 15 snaps if you have a horrendous game, right? And so if you've got a guy on the other side who's losing no snaps, that still means there's like 30 other snaps where the quarterback can stay somewhat clean. And by adding even just those 10 or so snaps in there, it helped them out a great deal. And then they started, okay, we're going to have Damian Williams, on that deep shot to Sammy Watkins, where he beat Sherman. Williams made an unbelievable block on that play, helping out Fish. Or maybe he's catching a blitz. No, because Fish took the inside guy. Williams came around. I mean, great block.
Yeah.
But they could slide protection. They could help him out. They could do some things that kind of helped them as the game went along. And you can't do that if Mitch Schwartz isn't dominating his matchup. And by the way, the previous weeks against the Titans, against the Texans, I don't think he lost a snap in 2 games. He was unbelievable. And it's a bummer for his Hall of Fame resume. Yeah. That the crap that happened with the Pro Bowl. And this is why every year when people freak out about the Pro Bowl and you're like, the Pro Bowl doesn't really matter that much. I get it. But that might matter with him at some point because he was one of the best offensive tackles in the league for 10 years.
Yeah.
And that might not get recognized. The all-pro teams matter.
Sure.
And the fact that he's part of a Super Bowl winning team and a wildly important part. But
for me, it's going to come down to the decade team. If he makes it, he makes the Hall. If he doesn't, he doesn't. I think that's really what's going to be the determining factor.
Right. And that's just going to be tough for him, I think, because of the timing of his retirement. And really, he was finally getting recognized, the recognition he deserved.
Right.
When he got hurt. And then he tried to play hurt for multiple games before going out ultimately in 2020. Wasn't able to play to his usual standards. But anyway, he just and he also is just the nicest guy. I'm sure, he's a pro athlete. I'm sure he's willing to give crap as well as he takes it. But
sure,
if you look, I think he replied to every single person he's ever interacted with in the media when people were saying.
He replied to both of us today.
Yeah.
And I've never interviewed him.
Yeah. I've interacted with Mitch probably other than a quick, joke around on Twitter, maybe 3 times. He is a genuinely good dude. Awesome part of those teams. Should be remembered forever for Chiefs fans. I would put him much more as a major part of that particular run for the Chiefs than Sammy Watkins or Frank Clark or, almost anyone in terms of importance. There's Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu. And then Schwartz, Hill and Schwartz.
You got to put Hill in there, yeah.
Yeah, you got to put Hill in there. That really wasn't meant to be a shot. That was just me.
Sure.
Yeah. Look, he started a podcast. He says all sorts of things. Good for him. But
here's the big thing, though. Patrick Mahomes is not the quarterback he is today if it wasn't for Mitch Schwartz. Because he would have been under fire more. He would have taken more hits. He probably would have more injuries in his career at this point if it wasn't for Mitch Schwartz.
I could definitely see that. And Schwartz is just such a smart player. He adjusted his game. One of the reasons it took a little bit of adjusting for Mahomes last year with a whole new offensive line is, Fish is the type of player he is. He just doesn't get beat around the edge much. He gets beat inside or right through him. Schwartz is more okay, so he likes to drift back too far. I'm going to adjust. And it kind of spoiled Mahomes a little bit. And so he's such a great player. I cannot wait to see what he does next. I don't know. Maybe I'll hassle him to see if he wants to do some basic offensive line pointers. He used to do last year, every Friday, he'd do an offensive line technique thread on Twitter. And I think I DM'd him. I'm like, dude, you could charge for this. This is great stuff. And he's, and obviously he's got plenty of cash. I don't know. You think a $50 freelance thing might get him to write something for the Chief of the North newsletter?
Maybe we could bribe him with airtime. We'll get him on here one time.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the exposure, you just be like, yeah, get your name out there.
Come on, bro.
And he really does a tremendous job when he does appear with Robert on the Athletic Football Show, which has become one of my favorite podcasts, actually. So I'll give a shout out to Mitch on that because he's on there pretty frequently. He really thinks through the stuff he has to say. Mm-hmm. I think if he wants to, he'll have a career in broadcasting. And I think he'd be one of the good ones to have on there.
I would rather listen to him drone on about ants crawling up a hill than listen to Booger McFarland one more time. I'm telling you.
And that's not to say Booger McFarland doesn't know the game. He knows ball. It's just, are you someone who's, Are you someone who can contextualize that information and present it. I don't know. I find Booger entertaining personally.
Okay. As long as you're happy, that's fine. There's got to be somebody out there.
But no, I mean, seriously, I mean, just one of the, just an awesome chief who came midway through his career. One of the best free agency signings in team history. And that was one of Dorsey's last signings, like big signings, right? Because it was 2017.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. I mean, I'm sure Veach was involved, but
yeah, I mean, really, when you look at some of the moves that the Chiefs made to finally win the Super Bowl, obviously drafting Mahomes was the most important one, and really, Kelsey had come years earlier. And obviously, that's a big part of it, but it was years later. But the things that really got them over the hump, one of them was Mitch Schwartz and taking like that next step. And it's no coincidence that Alex Smith, along with Tyreek Hill's development and all that stuff, had a career year when Mitch Schwartz arrived.
It's coincidence.
Shout
out to Fox Pro 14.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you here. This is how we roll. So we give you our take, our main topic of the night. We'll get into your questions here in a little bit as we roll into the similarities that I want to cover real quick, Seth, because I do agree with you about the broadcast part. But folks, if you want to support the channel, memberships are a great way to do it. You get extra content from Gooch, from Stevie and him and Aaron. You get rants from Dan and I. At some point, we might even get Seth to cuss one day. If we do, we have to have it on camera, and I'll put it behind the member wall. I don't think it's going to happen soon, but I want it documented. But that's what you get becoming a member. You can also give us super chats if you want to get something across, a point, a question, a comment. Feel free. You can also grab some gear in the RGR store. It's linked in every video that we do. A lot of cool stuff coming in over there. And I've got some new designs. We'll see what happens. I'm a little behind. They're buried because, I have prototypes everywhere now. And the new house is kind of semi-organized. There's a lot of folks been telling us this today. Fox Pro, thank you for this. Been watching since 18. That's the year I started the channel, when there was 5 of us on. So thank you, Fox Pro. Appreciate you. And we do have questions coming, but I want to circle back real quick because you said something that I said earlier today when my first take reaction, and that was that it's not just commentary. Mitch Schwartz could go into an ESPN studio and do an entire show about the league, not just the offensive line. He can call ball games and be the color analyst. I think he can do any of that. And I think that's a big chunk of his future possibilities. Do you think that's the way that he goes?
I would be surprised if he went that route, at least consistently. The only reason being, I think he's got a lot of interests outside of just football. He's been clear about that. The Mitch and the Kitch thing, I think, is really cool. Yeah. And I think it's probably something he would enjoy more and he could do with less time. You know what I mean? Because he strikes me, and I could be wrong here, but if you want to do a good job being a color commentator or a broadcaster, it's a lot of work. To be good at it, you really do need to know quite a bit about the teams you're talking about. And it's so easy because otherwise you get roasted by jerks like us that know the team really, really well inside and out. And, that's hard to do if you're talking about the entire league. And so I try to give people, some benefit of a doubt when they make mistakes. Some of it, if it's just obviously lazy, and you're just grabbing onto hot takes. I mean, that annoys me, and I don't have patience for that. But it really is hard to do really well. And I could see him saying, man, I've made X millions. I'm happy. I can make money doing this, this, and this. He obviously is a vested player, so he's got retirement and all that stuff too. I'm guessing he probably goes with some of his other interests and then kind of does sidebar stuff on the Athletic NFL show and that kind of stuff. And if I can convince him, I'm going to try to push the needle. I move the needle a little bit, push the needle. That's a very different thing. I'm going to try to move the needle a little bit and convince him whether he starts his own site, whether he does it for the Athletic or whoever. He really does a great job breaking down offensive line concepts in a way maybe he works with Brandon Thorne, who also is terrific. That would be a really natural fit because offensive line is still a position that, and I include myself in this, that is the least understood of all of it, because it just seems like people don't really understand what they're seeing. And so much of it depends on the call. And it's just so cool to like have someone explain not just the what, but the why.
Mm-hmm.
And noticing just everything matters for offensive linemen. Like I was talking to someone about stance, and the guy talked for like 10 minutes straight about like the specifics of like the difference between like, like this and this.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
But it all
back
matters heel, so it's all important. It's all a telltale.
Yeah. And when you're in the trenches and you have this much space between the two of you to start the play, if that difference between this and this is life and death. And also I just respect offensive linemen so much. If you're ever like up close, like a training camp on a pads day,
mm-hmm.
or at a game, when you really get down there near the field, it sounds like a car crash. And so anyway, I mean, he's going to be successful with whatever he does. I'm happy for him. And you know, one thing he never did, Ryan? He never held out.
Oh, good point. Because it's down the line, but I was going to get there. Because the other thing that I think, you mentioned Brandon, and they're already friends, so I can definitely see that happening. But the thing that stands out to me is what he's been involved with it. And I believe he and Duke started together in O-line Masterminds. It's a pro level like coalition to defeat defensive ends. That's what it's for.
Yep.
I think that his future should be along those lines in being like the ultimate private coach for elite athletes at this game.
Sure.
And I think one guy in particular is exactly the kind of person that Mitch Schwartz should have as a client, because Orlando Brown is a very good tackle, but he is not elite. And the things that Mitch did in order to overcome the athleticism we talked about before and to get to that level is exactly what Orlando Brown needs. So, Mitch, your first client, should his new agent, best friend, pal of mine, has decided to inflate beyond recognition. I saw a number that now they think it's 25 a year is what they think they're worth.
Right. And let me just say, I tweeted about this earlier.
Did you?
It is so much fun watching leak season.
Right.
Contract dispute, because I was at Garofalo. I don't remember. It was someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for. But he was reporting that the two sides are far apart. The Chiefs are basically offering right tackle money. He's ready to sit out all of training camp, and week one's in doubt. That was like, you could like, and again, this is the job. And so, yeah, you take the quotes of the agent, you let them know, because that's what the player's saying. That's news. That is part of the job. That's hustling. He got the story. Good for him. But that's also, and this is part of getting the story, is you got to be willing to be like, they're saying that he may actually, and that's part of it. That really
Please don't do that again.
Yeah. Was that pretty bad? Was it because I had the?
Did you grow up on a farm? Is that what it was?
Someone complimented my arm, so I had to do anything I could do to like, So then the thing is, you go like here, but then sometimes you're over here. Well, nope, see, that's too far away from the camera.
Is it that way?
Yeah, you got to pick the right spot. So that's so obviously Orlando Brown's camp leaking stories. And first time agent, look at you leaking stories. Nice. And didn't even choose Shefty to do it.
I know, right?
Smart.
I said that yesterday on the Locked On show. Like, he's the new agent. He must have been around some before, because he's pulling out, weapons, going to the media, leaking out. That it usually takes some like years in the business for agents to get to that point, to at least do it effectively. So yeah, cheers to him. But
yeah,
the numbers are just silly. He's only worth 19. He's only worth right tackle money. That's the thing.
Here's the deal. Them saying that they're like $4 million apart. So what do the Chiefs do? Because now, like, this is the Chiefs' first rodeo.
Right.
Brett Veach calls someone up and he says, well, man, we love Orlando. We really do. But we would love to pay him close to top of the market money. And I mean, he's saying we're $4 million apart. I mean, he's asking for 25. And what does that do? That leaks that you're offering 2021, 20-ish, 21-ish. And we'd love to. Oh, he's twisted our arm. Oh, this unreasonable player. Who will deliver us from this lack of rational thought? It's great because from the team's perspective, the only real danger here, there's only two real dangers here. One, and I know we'll talk about this in a minute, is that he actually holds out for the entire season.
Right.
Maybe he does that. I would be shocked. I mean, there's a reason why Le'Veon Bell did it, and there's just not
career ended.
And that did not help him. And he's a little bit older, and he was a running back. And so maybe Brown says, hey, I've got a season to spare. Here's the problem for Orlando Brown in holding out. You got to assume you're going to make back that $16.6 million in your next contract. and you really can't because the difference between top of market money, the very, 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 very top, and what the Chiefs reportedly, through their wonderfully leaked news, hats off to you guys, fighting the battle. I'm so cynical about this, but it's just a war. It's like a family law case where they're filing their affidavits like, oh, she's evil and she's hurting the children. No, he's been a monster for years. And as a lawyer, you sit there like, y'all were married for 20 years. Stop it, okay? Quit acting like each of you was the devil and just chill. But that's negotiating, right? Positional bargaining.
This is why I don't want Seth's job, folks.
No, not anymore. You couldn't pay me enough to do family law again. So anyway, it's interesting to me what they've tried to set it up as. But so that's the one danger is, he actually holds out. The other danger from the Chiefs' perspective, the thing that they're immediately worried about is the court of public opinion, because that does matter to the team. It might not matter that much to Orlando Brown. He's not a quarterback. He's not going to get a bunch of sponsors. He's not going to, you know what I mean? That's just not how that works for them. Usually you get some, but not as many, not even close. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is sponsoring Coors Light without sponsoring Coors Light or being sponsored by, which was hilarious, by the way. Pat, for one thing, it's insane that the NFL doesn't let players promote a product that they promote 9,000 times every game. That is the dumbest thing. But the Coors Light, that was so funny. And good on you, Pat. Get those paychecks, my man. Because every paycheck he gets from those guys, although I know the proceeds for the Coors Light went to 15 of the homies, but you can't tell me that he didn't get a little bit of something. He's a good dude, but come on.
There's a Ferrari in there somewhere. I'm just saying.
Yeah, there's a Ferrari in there somewhere. So the Chiefs are trying to win the battle of public opinion, and they're also so Orlando's saying, guys, I'll sit out. I'll do it, man. You don't even know. You should pay me. Will. What are you going to do without me? And the Chiefs, by putting that out there, are saying, I'm not going any higher than this.
We'll be all right.
And now watch the public react to the idea that you want $25 million. Trent Williams makes $23 million.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what direction you want to go with this next, because we could talk about contracts at the end.
We're going to get into the question here in a minute because it's leading up to it.
Let's do it.
Okay, fine. We'll just hit to the top because that's really what it is. And hey, out there in Richmond, I got friends out there. There's a Travis Tritt song about Richmond, Virginia that I absolutely love. In fact, I might play it this weekend. Somebody asked me about where the band is playing on the 25th. Unfortunately, 25th of September is not a date for the Canyon Creek Band. We are at the Colorado State Fair on the last weekend in August, and we are playing up in Casper, Wyoming in October. But I don't think we have anything on the books in September, especially on the 25th. I apologize. So,
slacker.
Look for us possibly, folks, for all of you in Texas. Might be making a Texas swing here later in the year. So Canyon Creek Band is bound to come back. I just want you guys to know. If you've never heard of us, you hit Canyon Creek Band into your little search bar there on YouTube when you finish with us. But Jeremy asked first, we'll get this a lot tonight, but are you worried? Do you think that it does come down to either of those scenarios that you just mentioned?
I assume. Now, here's the thing. Orlando Brown is clearly a guy who is willing to march to the beat of his own drum. Mm-hmm. He was willing to make it clear to the Ravens, hey, I think I'm a left tackle. I want you to trade me if you're not going to play me there. That's an unusual thing for a player to do. He's clearly willing to die on some hills, although the Ravens never called that as a bluff, right?
True.
They said, okay, and they traded him because they assumed they wouldn't be able to keep him around. Now, that was a team that had drafted him, that knew him well. So I assume he's a dude who's willing to die on a hill. Is he willing to die on a prideful hill that costs him $16.6 million? Probably not. The only justification that a player can give is, well, I can't risk getting hurt while I'm on the tag. That's sensible to an extent, but it's not going to really hold up because he's going to be training privately during it anyways, even if he held out all year, unless he's insane.
Right.
And you can get hurt doing that. Guys do frequently. So
and let's be honest though. He is 26 years and 3 months old.
Yep.
He cannot afford to sit out a year.
And that's the other thing. This is the year to get paid, because if he gets paid this year and it becomes the equivalent of a 4-year contract, you hit that next contract at 30, not 31.
Right.
Boy, does that matter.
I would even argue that if I'm the Chiefs, I'm pushing for a 4-year, and you let him go at 3, and he gets to resign.
Yep, and you say, hey, man, you hit free agency again at 29. You get 2 big paydays. That's a huge deal. That's the difference between, okay, sure, I got one $80 million payday, but my next one is only $25-30 million. Or, hey, what about 2 big, fat $60 million, $70 million paydays back to back? So I just don't see him holding out. And honestly, if the Chiefs, through their conversations, think that he legit might, then you call Eric Fisher, you say, hey, what do you need to come back for a 1-year deal? It's not like people are beating down the door for big fish, and you got a guy that you can at least execute the offense with.
I agree with that completely. I am concerned that there is bad blood.
Yeah, there could be.
Fish was not happy when he left town.
That's true.
So I am concerned about that part of it.
Right. Well, and I'm sure from his point of view, like, they didn't really believe in him, and he ended up recovering to the point that he could play, but it clearly took a toll on him last year. His athleticism is a big part of who he is.
Yep.
And year 1 after an Achilles, and hey, good on him. He worked his butt off, got healthy. That had to have been that physical therapy. That must have been grueling to come back. But at the same time, he played okay, but not up to what he'd been previously. And the Chiefs couldn't risk that in its business. So maybe you can't there, but they'll figure something out in terms of having a Band-Aid. The rest of the line's good. I mean, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's your worst case scenario right there. That is your literally worst case scenario. And that's if he's willing, again, to cost himself over $16 million. Most guys aren't willing to do that.
If he does, he needs to fire that agent. I'm telling you, like, that's going to ruin your career and your potential earnings overall.
Well, and there's something interesting that I have here as a thought, and this is just a theory that I have. I could be way off, and if this comes across, I'm sure they're watching, but I'm sure they don't give 2 craps what a guy like me thinks. But here's what I know. I've been a lawyer for about 8 years now, and I know some people take a long time to find a lawyer. And one reason they take a long time to find a lawyer is because they meet with different lawyers, good lawyers, who tell them, like, let's say someone's charged with, a certain criminal offense. And actually, like Better Call Saul had a whole season based around this with these clients. And when you've got a lawyer who looks you in the eye, and I've done this, I've said this to clients, hey, I need you to get this dismissed, right? Let's say it's a DWI, okay? You come to some guy, he looks at the case, and he says, look, I'll take your case, but I can just tell you right now, I'm looking at this, I don't see a stop issue. I don't see any kind of issue. And because DWI law in Minnesota is very settled, without a stop issue here, something like that, this is the best deal that I can get you because every county has standard DWI deals. You blew, a 0.14, the legal limit is 0.08. I can't get you a careless driving. All I can do is the standard DWI deal, but I'll take a look at it. I'll walk you through the process. I'll hold your hand, and it'll cost you $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is lawyers are charging these days. I have no idea. Most people say, okay, fair enough. You've taken the time to meet with whatever. Some people say, no way. This is a travesty. It's a travesty. I can't believe you're telling me that you can't win this case. What kind of lawyer are you? So then they go meet with the next lawyer. Next lawyer's a good lawyer. Tells them the same thing. And on it goes until finally they get to a lawyer. And this is not just true in criminal. It's true in family law, child protection, every area of law. And they find a lawyer who tells them what they want to hear. Oh,
then they lose.
This is an outrage. I will fight. I can't believe those hacks down the road didn't tell you. Now, is that what happened here? I have no idea. But if they're asking for 25 mil, I'm going to leave that hanging.
Yes, we have other questions to answer, so we're going to do that. Thomas, we both feel that the Chiefs will be able to play without Orlando Brown. They will come up with something, so I hope we answered that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they had a whole season without Mitch Schwartz. They made it to the Super Bowl, and they didn't lose that Super Bowl solely because Mitch Schwartz was gone.
Right.
And again, by the way, that's all just a theory on my part.
Just a theory.
Just a theory. I could be way off, but
it could be dead on.
I'm all in favor of players getting the bag. Make no mistake. Go get paid. This is their job. Absolutely. You should get paid as much money as anyone's willing to pay you at your job. Go for it.
Yeah. Dan, Dan, I was talking to you. I hope maybe we can do something else. I don't know. I don't know what we'll have going on at that point, but get in contact with me, Dan. Love the content. Is it safe to say this year's defense will be better in the first 8 games than last year's defense was in the same stretch? Safe? No.
I'd like to say yes, because last year was like historically bad, but there's a lot of new faces in the room.
Yeah.
I don't know who's rushing the quarterback.
Stop saying that. I went back and watched 4.5 games of 2019 when Tyreek was out. I noticed Mahomes was still able to spread the ball around, but no to any game. Your thoughts on those games? Thank you, Micah. That's a good one. I'll tell you what it means. Spreading the ball out when they're playing too high is easier. Yeah. Because the gaps are over the top.
Right. It's just basic.
That actually plays into what the Chiefs want to do.
Basic math. You've got the whole field right here, right? The intermediate routes. And instead of having a guy here, you've got a guy here.
Or here.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you might have a guy right here just playing just straight up robber. And so it is easier to spread the ball out more. I really want to make sure I temper expectations for people, though. It is incredibly unusual to lose a Hall of Fame caliber player and be better off. The Chiefs are banking by grabbing 2 decent, good players. It's not like they're average players. MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster are above average wide receivers by not a huge line, but by a little. So you grab those 2 guys that threaten the 2 different areas of the field. That's the idea. I get it. And I think Skyy Moore, I'm really excited for him. So we'll see. If those 3 things pan out, they will absolutely be better off. Absolutely. I mean, they would be better off, with those 3 and Hill, obviously, or if you replaced Hill with any one of them. But if Moore pans out and those other 2 play like they did last year, then yes, you're better off with those 3 than one Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. The big difference, Micah, is that when they're playing too high, like we'll see this year, at least to start the season, is the gaps, the opportunities are under. What you saw in 19 when they weren't playing the 2 high shells, the opportunities were over the top, where you had to rely on beating press or getting a guy that was just naturally faster, McCole Hardman, in getting past a corner that you could stack. That's the difference. Now it will be schematic in that there won't be enough guys down low below the 15-yard area that can cover all the routes that they're going to run with this group of receivers. So definitely a different approach, but it can be profitable. Huckleberry, is it possible that they use other players to fill in the special teams gaps so they don't have to use wide receivers in those positions? Sure, DBs play some of it. If you get an exceptionally athletic linebacker, you could replace a wide receiver with one of them. Let's be honest. I mean, the Gunners have speed. The other 9 guys on any punt team are, not the speediest guys out there. So it all depends on the individual, in my opinion.
They'll miss Willie Gay out there.
Yeah, true. He does have that bulk and that speed.
Well, yeah, having a guy that can hit like him and run like him is just tough.
So Seth, all this taken in account, how do you feel about Orlando? Like, is this a guy that you're happy to have on the roster? Should they get a 6-year deal done?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. It's just the game. Go get your bag, man. Do whatever it takes. I think his best shot at securing the bag, if he really, so you negotiate as hard as he can until the deadline, and then mind your health, maybe skip some of training camp to lower the risk of injury, then go out, beast in 2022, and give them no choice but to give you absolute top of the market next year.
Yeah.
And great. He seems like a guy that probably believes in himself to do that. And he really, because he's got some physical limitations, but he's also got some physical gifts to where I could see him playing well enough to force them to give him a top of market deal. You improve between 5 to 10% on what he did last year, they don't have a ton of choice there. Then you got to pay it to him, or someone else will.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you. You force him to do it, you earn it. I'm there, no problem.
Yeah. Get yourself into the top 6. Top 6, you'll get paid top dollar.
Yeah.
Right now, he's like a top 12-ish guy.
I'm with you there. Terry, would moving Thuney to left tackle and trade Brown? There's 2 problems with that. Joe Thuney played extremely well at left tackle in one outing. You put 17 games there, and he'll look like self.
And you got to remember, he played really well against Trey Hendrickson, who's an excellent pass rusher, but he's also a unique pass rusher who's also T-Rex battle. We're joking about it afterwards, who really know offensive line. I think now everyone struggles with the Myles Garretts of the world and that kind of stuff, but you put him up against a guy with length. I think Thuney would still hold his own. I think he'd do better than we expect, but I just don't see why you would take a guy who's very high level where he is and move him in a spot to where everything works against him to not succeed. He's got good enough feet for the position easily.
Yep.
He would have tried out left tackle by now, because it's not like Joe Thuney's sitting around saying, man, that contract was great, but boy, I'm pretty happy I left another $4 million on the table. And that's because he's not as good as he is where he's at.
Yeah. So the other part of it, Terry, is that you cannot trade Brown unless he signs the tag or signs a contract. He has to sign something.
Yep.
So that is not an option until he chooses to do one of those 2 things. So that would be a hang up as well.
Right.
Jeremy, man, since we're talking about lines, imagine Charles behind the priest. Yeah. Yes, please. I'll take that twice.
I do once a week, probably.
Hey, Seth, as a lawyer, were you representing her? What are you trying to get him? Like, they're obviously pushing the high end, the bombastic end of this. What are you actually looking for?
If I were them, I would have started off asking for the equivalent of what Trent Williams got. Just saying, hey, I get it. Trent Williams is a beast, but we're talking a year later now. The salary cap is up. He works in your system. He's super durable. He's young. And then knowing that they're going to come back with 2021, give or take.
Yeah.
Or sure, fine. Start out at 25, I guess. I mean, you can't hurt. The worst they can do is say no. But I would walk in. If they get 21 a year for Orlando, I think they've done a pretty good job. If the Chiefs, and this is where the problem is, you end up picking nits over relatively smaller amounts of money. 19 or 20, that's better for the Chiefs. 21 or 22, Browns won by a little bit. But these are all variations of degrees. Both sides win if they get a long-term deal done, ultimately. And we'll just kind of see what that would look like.
I'm with you. Do you think the media is overhyping the Tyreek Hill loss? I think Tyreek is.
Well, I think one thing we're seeing with Hill, and I could be wrong here, is based on some of the quotes you see from him. I really think that maybe it bugged him a little bit that Patrick Mahomes and to a lesser extent Travis Kelce got more of the notoriety. The Chiefs, for reasons that I think Hill probably understands, held him back a bit. And I mean, they kind of had to. I mean, he came into the league under the specter of a previous conviction, whatever people think about how that conviction came to be.
Yeah.
And he was obviously subject to a child protection investigation at the very least. And that's at the very least, right? Maybe everything turned out hunky-dory. That's just a lot from the outside looking in. Yeah. And so you can't push him forward as the face of your franchise. So he's loving it now. Because in Miami, he is the dude.
It's all forgotten. Yeah.
I'm going to bring my quarterback with me. He wasn't able to say that kind of stuff ever in Kansas City because first it was with Alex Smith and it was too early and he wasn't quite a superstar yet. And then it was Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And so I really think that's where he's coming from.
I'm with you.
Benefit of a doubt.
Gooch Code Rogue is not a saying. It's a lifestyle. Indeed. With a Y. You can see the Rogue Life with Gooch in the members section should you choose to join at the rookie level or above. Thank you, Gooch, and thank you for the support. Gooch has another one. He's like, I'm tired of seeing the juicy one in black, so I'm going to buy a jersey from Jaden's Jerseys.
I'm not in black.
You guys, I know, but he's just saying he's going to get you a jersey. Roll with it. So everybody check out Jaden's Jerseys. By the way, Jaden is a longtime fan of the channel. He's with us a lot, and he's putting out some cool stuff. You can see him on Roguehead Huddle from last week, and you will see some more of him as well. And you can ship it. Thank you, Gooch. Daryl, thank you. Straight up, who's your favorite wide receiver that you would like to see do really good?
I'm assuming you mean on the Chiefs.
That's what
For
I thought.
that, it's Skyy Moore, hands down. I think he's got a skill set that translates well to the NFL. We'll see. It's a big jump in competition. But I mean, those mitts, man, here, like, let's use that same. We're going to use that same magic that helped my arms before. Now we're helping my hands. That dude's hands are ginormous. And he gets good releases. He's comfortable running through contact. We talked about that a ton when we were doing the Know Your Draft Crush stuff. That matters. And the other thing is they kind of know who they have in MVS, I think. I think they're hoping he can do a little more, right? They kind of know who they have with Juju. They're hoping he can do a little more. But those guys are safe bets. If you hit on Skyy Moore, like now you're cooking with gas because you've got those two guys and Skyy Moore and McCole Hardman that people forget about way too much. And that is a tough cover on the field with Travis Kelce. I mean, you're going to be rotating guys in and keeping them fresh. Like it's a cool thing.
It really is. I mean, in between the hashes is going to determine games this year, folks.
Yep.
Whether it's their linebackers, our linebackers, or the wide receivers doing crossing routes and eating up between the hashes.
Yep.
For me, I'm drawn, and I'll little bit out here, folks. So, outside of the analyst, I hope Justin Ross makes it, and I hope
that would be
that
such
he
a cool
does
story.
well. I was very, very adamant about him when he was a freshman, and obviously the injuries have just been so significant that it's hard to really look. But I'm pulling for him, and I hope that he does well. Thank you, Daryl. Alyssa, are there any good tackle prospects you know coming out to replace OBJ in the draft? There's the top two are at Penn State and Ohio State right now, so it's Big Ten all the time. I like a kid from Utah. I haven't done enough film on them. These are all guys that I saw while watching other prospects, so I don't even have the names memorized yet. But yes, there will be a much improved tackle class over 2 years ago, and probably marginally better than last year's class is what it looks like so far. But I will say the caveat is that a lot of them are juniors, so you don't know if they're necessarily going to come out or not. We'll just have to see how the season goes. Gooch, just send me you and your wife's sizes, Seth, separately. I have a bribe to fulfill.
I can do that.
I like it. Daryl, thank you again. Seth owns chickens. Is one named Juicy? Do you have chickens?
Yeah, we got chickens again. After the great raccoon massacre of last year, we rebuilt the chicken run, reinforced it a lot better. We still need to get a roof on there because raccoons can climb up and over, but they're safe from foxes now, stoats, that kind of stuff. And at night, lest anyone worry about our chickens, once it's nighttime, because we've never had a raccoon come around during the day or even the evening, they come around at night. At night, we block off the door into the coop. So, I mean, I guess if it wants to climb into the run and hang out, it can, and that's not going to end well for it when I get up in the morning. So
is there one named Juicy?
None is named Juicy. We've got, I'm not going to go through all the names, but none is named Juicy. One's named Tootsie.
Next one that you named Juicy, we'd like to see it. I'm just speaking for everyone. Stevie is here, by the way. He's going to have a particularly juicy and adorable guest soon. That should be very interesting. If anyone can make him cuss or cry, it'll be Gooch and me. Excited for other guests to follow, as are we, folks. Roguehead Huddle is the show with Stevie and Gooch and Aaron that exists outside of our normal programming because I'm not on it, and they get to say what they want. And it will be a mixture of public and member, depending on what the topic is and just how far we go down that road. So keep that coming. And I have to make a big announcement. I should have done it earlier in the show. We have a brand new contributor to the channel. You're going to see him tomorrow for the first time on RGR. I'm very excited about it. He worked with Seth at Arrowhead Pride. Is somebody Gary McKenzie is now with us, and his first piece goes up tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. He's going to do a lot of cool things here for our channel and really round out what I should have been doing probably for a while. So keep that all under the lid there. Another one from Stevie. It's funny promising bribes on your behalf, Gooch. Yeah. Hey, if you could throw that out, you're winning, Stevie. Micah. Okay, already got that one. I must have clicked it twice. Sorry. What's the chance that we end up with 2 OBJs on the roster, Max? I think it's a possibility.
You think they might go after OBJ?
Yep.
That would definitely be interesting. It'd be tough to do without extending Brown.
Right. One leads to the other, or the possibility of the other.
Yeah, and I think they're waiting. I think the whole NFL is waiting to see how he does with recovery. And I wouldn't be surprised if OBJ is waiting to see, and he's recovering all that. But I think he probably wants to wait till midseason and see where his mercenary service is. I think he kind of liked what happened last year.
Yeah.
A lot of OBJ healing occurred last year in terms of reputation stuff. And so I'm guessing he's going to wait to see what offenses. And I think the Chiefs would certainly be one of those offenses where he'd say, oh, absolutely. It just depends on how. I think that's going to be a Skyy Moore thing, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Obviously MVS, Juju, all of that. But I think if all 3 of those guys pan out how the Chiefs want, I'm guessing they won't go that route. But you can never have too many good receivers.
You're right. Miles, who will catch more touchdown passes this year, Michael Burton or Allegretti?
Burton gets 2.
Okay. Then he wins. I think Allegretti gets one, though. I think that play is in the playbook forever right now, at least as long as Allegretti's on the roster. Thank you, Miles. Watch out. If we hit 155 thumbs up during the live tonight, you're going to have a no hat next live. Wow, a whole live with no hat. I don't know if you can deal with that. That's y'all going to have some sunglasses.
Well, I think it's starting for me.
Oh, it's starting? Hey, it's all gone, bro. Hey, Night Under. I don't know why I grabbed that one. Ask me, is there, okay. This is all you guys daring me to take the hat off. That's all right. I can do that. I have to go places sometimes without a ball cap. I work. It's fine. I'll live. I'm just old. Seth, it's always been my thinking since we were talking about lines when it came to DT and LT made the left tackle position important so that when DT came along, he went against more refined left tackles.
The position certainly was given more preeminence after what LT did to the league, for sure. If the implication there is that DT was the superior player, LT is one of we're talking a very short list of players that I think was probably better. I will say, when DT would go on hot streak tears, when he found something he liked in a matchup, he would win in a flurry,
more dramatically. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it was a little faster. LT's pretty fast too, but it was a flurry, and it happened very quickly. It completely took over games, and that was unique to him in a lot of ways because most pass rushers aren't able to win that dominantly, repeatedly, over and over. Someone can kind of adjust to it.
Not to show my age, but as someone who watched both those players live, Derek is one of my favorites of all time. He was not as explosive as LT. There's just no way to get there. Yeah,
LT. It's kind of like when people compare a bigger, stronger defensive end to Reggie White.
Mm-hmm.
He's just, and in the future, we're going to be able to tell people this, honestly, I think, because I think he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest defenders to ever live. When people say, oh, yeah, this guy's kind of like how Aaron Donald was, and we're going to be like, no, he's not. Because Aaron Donald's just different. He's just that much power and that much explosion and that much bend. It's not supposed to happen. And that's what Reggie White and LT are like. So there's just very few players on that list.
Yeah, I would still probably go. There's just one player on that list. Anyway, Goose flew to Minnesota and stole Seth's black shirt. Yes, he did. So you get him in something colorful. We like it, and thank you, Gooch. Well done. I hope I explained it right on who was better. Okay, I'm not sure.
DT and LT.
Yeah, I think we got it. Lee, thank you. If OBJ sits out and does not sign his tag, does the number not count against the cap? Technically correct, because it will be unsigned tender.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. But I suppose they would be at risk if they just said, okay, if you're not going to sign. That would be so funny. If he's like, I'm going to hold out, I'm not going to sign. And they said, okay, and just use the cap space. Because then is the next galaxy brain move by him to then sign it and say, oh, now what are you going to do? Like, that would be so chaotic.
That would be crazy.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. That's interesting. But yeah, technically, I think that's open until he signs it. So great question, Lee.
Yeah.
Benjamin, did OBJ's Jr.'s dad get paid what he was worth? I never thought so, no.
That's a really interesting point of view. And you know what? It's so easy for us to look at this in terms of what we're seeing right now in the last 3 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. This is something he's been thinking about for the last 3 decades.
Yeah.
Ish. I mean, probably like more like the last 10 years or so. And that matters. You know, he probably did have his dad tell him, know your worth, because he might have gotten a little underpaid, you know? So that matters. And I hope that's a way of like humanizing this for people to understand that there's a lot of backstory here.
Yeah. I mean, that's what drives people. It drives people to make decisions and take stances. So it certainly makes a lot of sense. Folks, everybody say hi to Cole. He's in the chat tonight. Nice to see you, Cole. Am I wrong? But I think it's less about losing Hill and getting better across the board and more about coaching staff realizing what he did wrong last year, like not running the ball enough.
I don't think that's it. I don't think Andy Reid took last year and decided that he doesn't run the ball enough.
Right.
It would be my
Andy
guess.
Didn't. No. I did, but Andy didn't. If McColl hits 80 catches and 1,000 yards, you guys opposed to giving him a $20 million contract?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like McColl Hardman. I think he's a useful player, but I mean, 80 and 1,000, he in theory could do that in this offense this year with some of the cheap stuff that he's going to have an opportunity to get. Now, if he suddenly cleans up his route running and he becomes like a high-level route runner, which that guy would be he'd be a very tough cover.
He would.
As a high-level route runner. Incredibly tough cover.
You got to remember, Casey, at 80 catches and 1,000 yards, he might still not be a quarter of the offense in the passing game. And that's where it comes down to me.
And one year guys, I mean, they spook me. They really do.
Spards, if Orlando Brown is so confident in his progress, why not accept a $20 million APY with incentives to get you over 25? Well, it would have to be offered by the team,
right. It has to be offered by the team. And those incentives are often things that some of them you have control over, then some of them you don't. Pro Bowl votes, all pro nods, that kind of stuff. That's tough. Percentage of snaps played, injuries are luck. And so I think that's a tough way to go about it.
It's even tougher for linemen because you don't have the statistical touches that actually equate to yardage or gains or wins.
Yep. And the team can't, not feature you enough to, hold down your stats for your contract.
Right. Just keep feeding it, bro. We're good. Nighthawk, do you think that Skyy Moore is going to be more like Julian Edelman or better? This is blind admiration right here. That's all this is.
Yeah. I mean, I like Julian Edelman. I mean, I don't know if their games are necessarily that similar.
No, in fact, I think that they are very much not very similar because Edelman's number one trait. Oh, sorry. I meant to star that, not show it yet. That'll be up in the list. Edelman's stop-start was what got him open. It was not his dynamic acceleration, change, etc. It was just stop on a dime, his ability to change direction statically. Whereas I think Skyy Moore's best ability is how he has the vision and changes that to yak post-catch. I don't know that he's the greatest route runner, and I haven't seen on his film. Granted, Western Michigan, I only got 2 games of it, but I didn't see enough to make me think that he is an elite stop-start route runner before the catch.
Yeah, I don't see him winning in the same fashion. I see him winning more with strength through contact, smoothness, acceleration. Maybe more like a better comparison might be like an Emmanuel Sanders type as opposed to a Julian Edelman.
I'm with you. With Creed and Trey being drafted in the same way, are they both playing at a similar level by the time the contract comes around? Do you pay them both or let them walk? Let one walk? The nice thing is you're talking about a center and a guard. You can have them both.
Yeah, you can. Because, I mean, you got to remember that decision's going to come once Joe Tooney's guaranteed money is over.
Yep.
It'll be tough to deal with them separately. They're going to be viewed as linked.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, it just depends. Like, do they both keep playing at identical levels to what they played at last year? Because if that happens, then it becomes a little easier. You sign Creed probably the year before.
Right.
And then
it
you
becomes the priority.
And that'll be tough, but that's the business aspect of it. That'll be tough, but that's the business aspect.
Liz, 300 watching it and 116 thumbs up. If you guys get going, I don't know where we're at now. Somebody will have to tell me, but I heard you and Chris talk about Andy and his age the other day. Who would you guys like to see take over as head coach should he retire? That's a great question, Casey. Thank you. I personally am not 100% sold on keep it in the Reed tree, just replace with somebody else. There's only one Andy Reid. And I like EB and I like Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
And I like Doug Peterson.
Yeah. Kafka,
but there's only one Andy.
Yep. There's Andy Reid's unique. Basically, maybe you hope that it happens if it was going to happen in the next 3 years. Maybe you hope it happens after this year and you can convince Sean Payton to take over. Because Sean Payton is, I mean, one of the only guys that you're going to have kind of an equivalent-ish. Because Sean Payton's a great offensive coach. I mean, he's terrific. Now, I don't think Andy Reid's that close to being done, so I don't see it. But that's really the level you need it, is this Hall of Fame level type dude that has been shown that he can succeed with any quarterback. And it would be kind of cool, just since we're living in Fantasyland tonight, it would be kind of cool to see the Chiefs go from one system to another, that they're so different.
Right.
And I think Mahomes would crush in Peyton's system. And Peyton's system, much like Andy Reid's, is very malleable. He does all sorts of things. But
yeah,
I don't have a preference right now either. I really think you're almost better off, like you said, outside the tree. I think if you're Clark Hunt, if and when that time comes, and I think barring a catastrophe, they'll probably try to set it up over the course of a few years. I don't think you do it internally. I think you find a coach who has already proven he's a really good coach and bring him in.
Yeah, because we're talking about the back half of Patrick's contract probably. So like, I don't think you want to be like the whippersnapper Sean McVay type, go out on a limb of a young dude who's just new. You know what I mean? Mo, Powell did an interview and said Powell was on another Chiefs podcast. I didn't see that. And was asked about Ross, and he said he's happy and he's hoped that other teams will regret passing on him. I certainly hope so.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And that's really cool of Powell to say that, because obviously he has a lot to lose there.
Yeah, specifically him. Mac, thank you for the support. Appreciate you as always. Worst case scenario, overpay OBJ or hold out week 1?
I think long term, I struggle with that, because even if he's overpaid, I think he's got a little more improving to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it wouldn't completely kill you long term. I think overpaying him is probably worse than holdout week 1, because I don't think a holdout week 1 turns into a holdout in week 10.
I'm torn on this. I like to think long term, because hopefully he could grow into that.
Yeah.
And here's my hiccup. And Mac, this is very specific to your question. I could deal with a holdout week 1. You're in trouble if he holds out week 2, because that is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Mac and Bo said that's going to be trouble. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough one for me. Man, that's tough to say, but I had to say
that was a great question.
It was. Very well done. Thank you, Mac. Paul, Tyreek stats can be replaced by a committee, but do you agree with when you're down a score late in the fourth and you need a quick touchdown, stats don't matter anymore, and sorely miss Tyreek?
It'll matter.
It'll matter.
You need a dude who can beat press coverage. You need a dude. Now, they already have that with Kelsey. Obviously, teams are going to go be all over him. here's the idea with the committee idea is that between those 3 dudes, let's say, Tyreek's a guy who beats man coverage, 70% of the time. The idea is if you've got 3 dudes that each beat man coverage 40% of the time, one of them is going to be able to do it. And then you can spread them out and force more man coverage and actually get in that advantageous situation. That's the idea in theory, but I do agree that that's a really good way of framing where I think the Chiefs might miss him the most is those gotta have it situations. It was almost always Kelsey or Hill.
Yeah. I completely agree with both of you. And Paul, that's a well-scoped question. I will say this, though. The goal of the team and what I think will probably actually happen is that by being able to spread the ball out more, they shouldn't be in that particular situation very often. Whereas in taking those shots to Hill and Kelsey all the time and running up against double coverage a lot, it almost puts you behind the ball that you were going to play closer games and be more in that situation more often. So,
right.
Knock on wood, they avoid that. McCole Hardman's stat line prediction. What do you got, Seth?
I think he's going to end up with around. Oh man, I don't remember where he was at last year. I think he's going to end up similar stats to last year. I think the types of yardage that he gains is his niche. And I think with the additions they've made, I don't know if his role expands necessarily beyond that niche unless he grabs it. And if he does, awesome. That's incredible news for the Chiefs. That's win-win right there. But I think it'd probably be around the same number of catches, that 700 yards type thing. That's my guess. It could go up. Like I've actually named him as kind of a fantasy sleeper just because all it really takes is 2 targets a game of those cheap kind of targets that would have gone to Hill last year. And that's 2 more catches per game. That's another 30 catches there. And probably another 300 yards. That's why it's so easy to say, he could go for 1,000, just depending on what Juju, Moore, and MVS show with that stuff early. And they're not the same type of guy. Like those quick tunnel screens to a wide receiver. Those are Hardman plays. You want Smith-Schuster and MVS blocking on those plays.
Exactly. I think it's around 900. Is my guess. Yeah. I don't think he quite breaks 1,000.
And I think he'll end up getting a nice payday somewhere else after that.
Does OBJ need to sign the tender tomorrow too if he is going to play on it, or is it just till tomorrow for the new deal? It's just for the new deal.
Yep.
You can sign it anytime after that.
And it's just diabolical by NFL owners. Like in a business sense, to make it to where they force holdouts to be kind of pointless by making the deadline right now before training camp. Yeah. And that's the only reason. It's such an arbitrary thing. It's not like they had to do it. They could have said, no, you could sign, you can keep negotiating because that would encourage players to keep holding out because there'd be a point.
No, it's very well thought out. This is the week before you have to report to training camp. So you have to finish your holdout, make your decision, and be able to train for a week so you can be worth something when you roll into camp. This is very clearly defined for the ownership.
Yep. And Mike, we talked about this before, the rank and file don't care about the franchise tag, so it's probably not going to change anytime soon.
Agreed. Why not an RGR shirt for Seth to wear on Thursdays?
Yeah, Ryan.
I have 2 designs for you. I just need your approval, and you're okay because it's your logo on it. So
I would love to approve a logo. I'll sell some swag.
Okay, we're going to do that. We'll have Chief of the North merch that he will actually wear on camera at some point.
You should make it black.
I will make it black.
Otherwise, I don't know.
Just for you, I'll make it black. Everyone else can wear whatever color they want. I can make it multiple. It's fine. Do you think we could trade for James Cook or something? Doubtful. He's rookie running back. I don't think any team's going to quit on him yet. I can't remember who took him. I wanted to say it was the Bills, but good Lord, I'm spacing now. But yeah, I don't think they're going to give him up. I don't think there's enough of a roadblock there that he's in danger of being, practice squatted or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Pono, how's it going, buddy? What do you think about Orlando playing on the tag? And if he performs with a bad attitude and Patrick gets hurt, trade him away?
If he plays on the tag, he's going to be playing his butt off every week.
Yep. Because that's how he'll get another contract from someone else.
Yep. Because if he plays on the tag and is worse than he is last year, he's going to struggle to find someone willing to pay him $16 million a year.
Yeah, absolutely. The tag and trade is a very rare thing. I don't see that happening in pretty much any scenario with Orlando. Lee, what are you hearing about Mr. Watson? He seems to be working a lot with Patrick. Don't take this the wrong way. Garrett Dieter worked a lot with Patrick. Let's not put the cart before the horse. Put some pads on, hit somebody that isn't wearing the same color jersey you are, and then I'll be impressed. What's that line from Eddie Murphy back in the day? You want to impress me? Take the wheel for a little while. And he was talking to Stevie Wonder. That's kind of like, show me you can do this, and then I'll care. Okay. Sorry, it was a long way back.
I forgot about that line.
Right.
Man, Eddie Murphy would not have the career that he had. He would not have that carear today. He said some stuff, man.
Yes, he did. And now, as I get older, the guy that I like identify with most in Eddie Murphy's stand-ups are his dad.
Yeah.
Who broke that lamp in 1971? That's what I want to ask people. Jay, could Leo Chanel be a step in edge if the Chiefs don't acquire another edge piece? Maybe.
I think if Leo Chanel could play edge, Wisconsin would have played him at edge. It's not like they weren't like, hey, you know what would be great? A really competent edge rusher who happens to be really athletic. Given his issues with change of direction that can show up in coverage at times, I mean, they would love to put him at edge. His measurements just aren't what you look for at edge. And there's a reason why Micah Parsons is kind of a one of one. He's built just a little bit differently. And I mean, maybe he can. I hope he does. That'd be amazing for the Chiefs.
I will tell you this too. He doesn't have to be an edge in order to help them with their pass rush.
Yeah.
He is a very capable blitzer from off ball. And I just hope that they use him that way.
Yeah.
Or
even have him as the Sam rather than just the actual edge.
Right. And in that situation, that's the one place that I think they could use him. They can line him at Sam and then blitz him off the edge. So he's like that overhang blitzer, edge rusher, what do you want to call it? You guys saw Reggie Ragland do that a few years ago fairly successfully. I think Leo could do that part in particular. Cool. If you would, guys, if you would hit the thumbs up and like and sub, that would really help out, because you know what? We're about to go into the season and we got to grow this thing so that everybody can join us. Otherwise, they're going to be left out of all this fun that we have.
It will just be terrible for them.
Last question of the night happens to be a super chat. Thank you, Tom Flora. The way I see it, if we have improvements at the wide receiver core over the last year, and 4, 5, and 6 have more production over the last year, over last team, bigger 2, we will be fine. I cannot argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, the team hinges around Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and then to a lesser extent, Travis Kelce. Yeah. And that's how it's going to be. I think something early on to watch for will be to see who grabs some trust early, because trust does matter with Mahomes. Well, it matters with every quarterback. There's a reason why when Tom Brady went to the Bucs, he asked Gronk to come. And it's not just, it was to add talent, of course, but it's also, they had a talented tight end. It's like he actually, Brady said something that I thought was cool when he congratulated Gronk on his retirement. He said, I knew no matter what the coverage was, no matter what they did, I knew you'd get to the spot. And that's one of the underrated things about Gronk as a player. Great receiver, different from Kelce. But part of what was underrated about him is, for a spot thrower like Tom Brady, being able to get to the spot no matter what they do. Because if you pressed Gronk, he was going to run through you. If you tried to hold, he was going to drag you. One guy, two guy, didn't matter. He always got to the spot. And I thought that was it was a very, very intentional quote. And that's where trust comes in. Getting to the spot. Who do you trust to get there? That might affect them early on. But I think you've got some vets that I think will earn that trust early on.
I have a tendency to think so as well. Thank you for the question, Tom. Appreciate you and your support, as well as everybody's support tonight. Welcome new members. Welcome to all you new subs. Angry Drunken German, you're absolutely right. I should get a beanie so that we can get you something, Seth, so you can look a little bit more, Minnesotan.
That's the Kyle. Is that the kid with the ear flaps and stuff?
I think so.
Because I got one of those Chiefs hats.
Do you really?
I do. I look incredible in it. And by I look incredible in it, my wife has been like, don't ever wear that around me. What's wrong with you?
Oh, I thought that was like child number 8 for you. Never mind.
No. That she almost took a child from me. I look so bad.
Folks, that's it for us tonight. Thank you for being here. Thanks for checking out everything that we do. We have all this content coming for you. Gary McKenzie is up tomorrow. You want to check that out. We have Rogue Head Huddle following that. You can see the guys with a special guest. Want to point that out. And then we have more coming around. As we get closer to camp, we get back into that normal in-season, we'll call it, schedule.
Yes.
Breakdown on Sunday night, post-game. There'll be breakdowns live on any game, whether it's Thursday or elsewise. Q&A still on Monday night. Then you get breakdowns in stats, analysis, film during the week. Then Seth and I are going to do something interesting with Chief of the North. You'll hear from him. I don't know what it's going to be yet. You'll have to tell me, Seth. And then we will have
spoilers.
Oh, right.
Holy
That's all
cow.
that I'm doing right here. And then, the game plans are back this year. We'll have the look ahead that will involve some film and a number of other things for you this year. So get ready. We have a ton coming. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope that you guys are too. Seth, thank you for the time. Thank you for wearing non-black. I really like it. You look pretty good. It's a nice color. Okay, folks, cheers to Boulevard. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you next time.